Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm bringing you guys my Edison format Blackwing deck profile. Blackwings has always been one of my absolute favorites to play in Edison format. It is part of the top 3 of the best decks available to play in the format, and even like this deck has like a lot of like engine stuff that goes into one of the other best decks, Vayu Turbo. You guys are going to see throughout this build, it's fairly conventional, but I do have a couple tools in here that also utilizes a few things from the Vayu Turbo strategy, such as Dark Grepher. So I think that this is a pretty standard build, but with just like maybe like 1 or 2 extra cards that sort of help push this deck to the next limits. So without any further ado, let's get on into the deck profile. We are also going to be doing a full side as well, just because I like to show you guys what to play in the side for Edison, just because Edison gets a little bit weird for when you're trying to pick out what you want to do. So I think deck by deck, it definitely changes what you want to play in your side. So I always want to provide that for these. But if you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe if you guys haven't already. But anyways, we were playing 3 copies of Sirocco the Dawn. I'm also going to be sort of like giving full explanations on these cards. That way you guys can sort of decide if you guys are newer to Edison, if you're looking to play this. But Sirocco the Dawn is one of the best cards of the deck. It is a level 5, but you are able to normal summon it if your opponent controls another monster. So it's a bit like a Cyber Dragon, but just keep in mind it's not a special summon that does utilize your normal summon. And then also once per turn, you're able to target one of your Blackwings and then give it the attack boost equal to the combined attack of all of your other Blackwings on the field. But then only that monster is able to attack. But there are really cool things that you can do. Especially like with this card with Bora the Spear, because Bora can do piercing damage. You can just boost a Bora on your field by like giving it an extra like 2,000 or maybe like 4,000 attack if you have a couple Siroccos on the field, and then it's going to do piercing damage for just a ton of damage. So really cool. Just love this card. Then we're going to be going on into 3 copies of Shura the Blue Flame. This card is sort of the heart and soul of the deck because it's able to tutor out anything from your deck after you destroy an opponent's monster by battle. You're able to special summon one of your Blackwings from your deck that has 1,500 or less attack. That monster's effects are negated, which is actually kind of relevant. I'm kind of hopping around here, but we are playing the 2 copies of Vayu in the deck, and Vayu is not able to be synchro summoned or like used as a tuner for synchro material traditionally. However, once you negate its effects with Shura, then you're able to go for synchro plays on the field. So special summon this from the deck. You can even attack, because you're still probably going to be in battle phase here, attack for another 800 and then go to main phase 2, and then you can go in for a level 5 synchro, which is still just amazing. Or you can summon out any of the other 1,500 attack guys from the deck. Then we're going to go on into our 3 copies of Bora the Spear. Like I said, this guy does piercing damage, and also if you have a Blackwing on the field, he's able to special summon himself from the hand. So there's a lot of really cool plays where, like I said, you get the Sirocco, you normal summon him, and then you special summon like 1 or 2 Boras if you have them. And then you also have your Blackwing Collector to be able to do additional damage. So there's just a ton of different ways that you can just blow out your opponent through battle damage. So that actually moves us on into the next card, Collector, the Moon Shadow. This card is just insane. If you guys have ever seen Simo's Progression series or even like History of Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff, he absolutely loves this card because with this card, it's a little bit like Honest. During the damage step, when your Blackwing monster battles, you can send this from your hand to the graveyard and just give that monster a 1,400 attack boost. This means that, again, with your Sirocco and your Bora going for those big damage pushes, you can also do cool stuff. If this is still in your hand, go for that other additional 1,400 damage for like more piercing. And just also if your opponent like is about to like attack over your Shura with like something big like a Stardust Dragon, then you just go ahead and pitch the Collector from hand, give your guy an additional boost that would take your Shura to 3,200, and then because that destroyed something by battle, then you're going to get that special summon effect. So there's just a ton of different synergies within the deck. Then going on into our next card, we have 3 copies of Blizzard. You generally want to play 3 copies of Blizzard. Sometimes people play it at 2, but when you only play it at 2, I feel like you kind of notice, so you definitely want this at 3 if you can. But when this card is just normal summoned, it's really simple. You get to get a Blackwing back from your graveyard in defense position. So this is a great way to just like bring Shura or bring back your Bora the Spear back from grave and then go for like an immediate Synchro 6 play, which is really cool. Then we have our 2 copies of Vayu. This card, just absolutely insane for the deck. This card, being in the graveyard, you're able to banish this and 1 other Blackwing monster from your graveyard, and then special summon another Synchro. So the really cool like ladder system that happens here is that if you have Vayu in grave with Sirocco, you banish these 2, and then you summon the Armed Wing. And then if, let's say that you get your other Vayu in grave with Armed Wing, then you can banish Armed Wing and the Vayu to go into your Armor Master. Or let's say that you already like synchroed into Armed Wing, he's in grave, you do that thing, you go into him. And then for your second Vayu, if this is engraved with Vayu, then you're able to then go into Blackwing Silverwind. Even though this card says that it needs like a Blackwing tuner and 2 non-tuners, you are not actually traditionally synchro summoning this card. You are actually just special summoning it. It does negate their effects when you do it this way, but just keep in mind this card is a really powerful way to be able to bring out these guys from within the extra deck, which is just really cool. It just sort of is like this cheating mechanic, which just helps you. Again, this is the reason for the namesake of Vayu Turbo. So that's definitely why you want to play 2 copies. Again, this is a card that some people will cut down to 1, but I think it is one of your best resources to be able to like close out games on your opponent or just like manage your resources. If you and your opponent are kind of like top decking, but you get a Vayu into grave with one of your Synchros or a Sirocco, it just can totally change the game around. Then we have our 1 copy of our Gale the Whirlwind. This card is limited in Edison format, so that's why we're only playing 1. Otherwise, you would definitely play this at 3. But with this card, very similar to Bora, it's able to just special summon itself if you have another Blackwing on the field. And then it does have another effect where once per turn, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and that target's attack and defense become halved. If this card needed to be any better, it doesn't come up a lot, but it is kind of cool. Like if you can like target again, like if your opponent has a Stardust Dragon, target it, have its attack, and then just walk over it is really cool. The 1 card, like I said, that I have in here to sort of boost the sort of Vayu Turbo side of this deck is 1 copy of Dark Grepher. People generally cut this from their decks, but I tested around with it, and I really liked when I put it back into the deck. I used to have it in the deck, took it out, and then put it back in, and I think it's just really impactful. There are certain decks, or certain times definitely in testing, where I had like a Sirocco just bricking my hand, and then I would draw Dark Grepher. You summon out Dark Grepher, either special summoning him or just traditionally normal summoning him, and then pitch Sirocco to the grave, and then that pitching to grave then can send Vayu to grave per Dark Grepher's effect, and then boom, you're off to the races doing more of those special summon for the Synchros, which is just really cool. Then for our last monster, we were playing 1 copy of Dark Armed Dragon. Dark Armed Dragon, just really cool for this deck. Every card that I've shown you so far is dark, so why not play Dark Armed Dragon? Then getting on into the spells, the best spell card of the deck, which is Black Whirlwind. On normal summon, when you summon a Blackwing monster, it allows you to add another Blackwing from your deck to your hand with a lower attack than the monster. So that's kind of why I put them in this order besides Gale. These are all in order of like highest to lowest attack. So you go Sirocco. I mean, it's just really cool how this deck sort of just like works out. All of these cards, when you summon out Shura, it just enables you to be able to like search for a Kalut or search for your Gale, all that kind of stuff. Anything that has lower attack, just really cool to be able to tutor those cards out. And you'll notice in the mirror match, if you are playing and like one of you guys gets Black Whirlwind and the opponent does not, you are going to be off to the races, and they're going to be fighting a very hard fought battle, trying to keep up with that advantage that you're gaining on them. one copy of Allure of Darkness just to draw some extra cards, one Heavy Storm, and one Brain Control. I'm not playing MST in this build, and that is for the reason of the fact that we are playing 3 copies of Icarus Attack. In general, you just don't really need MST, but there is still, you know, like a viable argument. If you do want to play MST, definitely go ahead and just put it into here, but I am not playing it in here, and I really haven't noticed an issue. The 3 copies of Icarus Attack, just absolutely insane. This card gets you so much advantage on your opponent, and it's really, really great for if you just draw into like a couple of values and you really want them to get into the graveyard. Icarus Attack is like your best vehicle to make sure that that happens. You just go ahead, normal summon value, tribute it, blow up 2 of your opponent's cards, and now you get to do like that synchro play from grave, which is just insane. Then we're going on into 2 copies of D-Prison and 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. Overall fairly standard, and now is where we get a little bit deviated from the standardness. We are playing 1 copy of Legacy of Yata-Garasu and 1 copy of Jar of Greed. If you guys have seen modern Blackwing builds, people are playing like 3 copies of Yata and like 1 or 2 copies of Jar of Greed. However, when I started sort of adding in cards like Dark Refer, and you guys are going to later see we were playing Royal Oppression, those are the 2 slots that I took out 2 of the Legacy of Yata-Garasu. So for that reason, why am I playing like 1 Legacy and 1 Jar of Greed? Well, I am doing that for a very specific reason, and the reason is just sort of because of the mind games that you can play on your opponent. One really big thing with Blackwings is that basically everybody knows 99% of like the cards that are in your deck, or maybe I should say like 95% of the cards. There's not a lot of deviation that people do. Like I've said, I've sort of told you guys about all of the ratios. The thing is, when you play against Blackwings, they do play a ton of back row because they're such like a battle-centric deck, and they can gain or lose advantage very quickly. Like if you lose your Shura early and all you have is like maybe a Collude in your hand now, you lose your advantage very quickly. So because of that, everybody knows basically what is in your deck. That is why you're playing a ton of like the battle traps and all that sort of stuff and removal cards. But if your opponent is sitting on like a Heavy Storm or an MST, they're going to be basically having to ask themselves, okay, does the opponent have Icarus Attack? Do they have Bottomless Trap Hole if I summon into a monster? Or if I use this Heavy Storm, am I going to hit a Jar of Greed or a Legacy of Yata-Garasu? So in my opinion, in the modern age, you still want to keep these in your deck, but it is sort of a mind game. If you just play 1 of each, and like game 1 or 2, your opponent sees like Jar of Greed, they're going to go, oh boy. So they're playing Jar of Greed probably plus 3 Legacy of Yata-Garasu. And if they just like, if they see the Legacy of Yata-Garasu and whatnot, they're obviously still going to be thinking that you're playing like 3 copies. So because of that, it just sort of like fills in this imaginary gap of having more of these draw cards than you actually do. It turns out that you actually have more live cards, which is really great. So again, just sort of playing around that mind game of your opponent not knowing what you have face down. And we're going to get into that a little bit more here. We're playing 1 copy of Trap Dust Shoot, 1 Mirror Force, 1 Torrential Tribute, and then sort of for the rest of the cards that we want to make our opponent think that we have it at a moment's notice is Solemn Judgment and Starlight Road, and then the last card, just to get it out of the way, is Royal Oppression. But these cards in conjunction with your draw traps is really, really crazy, because again, your opponent's going to be thinking, okay, I'm about to summon out a monster, I need to get rid of their back row in case it's Bottomless Trap Hole or something. And let's say they pop Heavy Storm, and you have Starlight Road protecting 1 of your copies of Black Whirlwind, so you just have these 2 cards on the field. Now great, Starlight Road is going to save you, you're going to get out your Stardust Dragon for freebies, and now they still, now they have to contend with that. So that's all really great. And then you still have your Mirror Force in the deck, which is, or sorry, your Solemn Judgment in the deck, which is really great, or they're going to think they're going to hit a draw trap and they're not going to get enough value. So you kind of want your opponent to see these 4 cards at some point in game 1, or game 2 even, and just sort of always have that in the back of their mind of like, okay, they're playing Judgment, they're playing Starlight Road, they're playing draw traps, and it's going to feel bad if they run MST or their own Icarus Attack Attack or their Heavy Storm, all those kind of cards that are gonna, or even like Black Rose Dragon. So for that reason, we're playing like a really big mix of traps, which again just sort of adds into the mind games. So hopefully that all makes sense of why I'm playing those ratios. I've really liked it since I started doing that. But let's get on into the extra deck. So we're playing our 2 copies of the Blackwing Armed Wing. And like I said, when you guys summon these guys off of your value, their effects are negated. So they're basically just big dumb bodies. But if you're summoning out like a 23, 25, or 2800 attack beater, like that is still just no joke. But their effects are still relevant because you can still hard synchro into all of these cards. So per their effects, Blackwing, Armed Wing, this card does piercing damage and gains 500 extra attack if it is attacking a defense monster, which is just crazy. Then we're going to go on into the Armor Master. This card just has like battle phase and, battle and destruction protection, which is really cool. Then it has another effect with wedge counters, which we're just not going to get into. Then we have the the 1 copy of Blackwing Silverwind. Then getting on into the generics, for our level 5s, we have Magical Android and Ally of Justice Catastor. You still want to play one of each of these because they're still really good. 1 copy of Brionic and 1 copy of Goyo Guardian for our 6s. These cards are obviously also very standard. 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon. This card is very easy to go into because you play the Gale. So if you just go like Black Whirlwind, normal summon Bora, and then search for your Gale, boom, you have a Black Rose Dragon right there. You're going to lose your Black Whirlwind, but whatever. If it's worth it, it's worth it. Then for our 8s, we're not playing too many, but we have 1 Thought Ruler Archfiend, 1 Dark Arm Dragon, and 1 Dark End Dragon, and 1 copy of Stardust Dragon. I sort of played the ratios like that because I wanted to play 1 copy of Mistworm. We are playing Mind Control in the side deck and Brain Control in the main. So we sort of want to have a level 9 depending on like what cards we're stealing from our opponent with those cards. And we can even go into Mistworm with our own cards. Again, like if we have like, for some reason, if we had 2 Kalutes on the field and then special summon the Gale from the hand, like we can easily go into Mistworm. So still definitely relevant. And then for our side deck purposes, we are playing 1 copy of the Chimera Tech. Really quickly, let's go on into the side deck. So we are playing the 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. Very important to be able to like get this for whenever you're playing up against a machine deck. Also just sort of like pretty generic, 1 copy of DD Crow and then 1 copy of Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. I didn't really want to play 2 copies of this because this deck does sort of like normal summon quite a bit, so I didn't want to like have to be setting this all the time. We are playing the 1 copy of MST in the side. If we're playing up a deck like Vayu Turbo, which is just better at special summoning than us, especially like getting into Vayu better than us, we probably want to side out our Royal Oppressions and then put in MST to try to get rid of their Royal Oppression, and then just other like floodgatey stuff that our opponents could be playing. 1 copy of Nobleman of Crossout and 1 copy of Mind Control. I've said it before in other side deck things, but these 2 cards together are just really insane. When you're playing up against like a Raiko Caius kind of deck that's playing a lot of face down cards like Raiko and Hamster and all that stuff, these cards just to be able to just banish or to take control of those is really insane. And if we can get graveyard setup from a Raiko that our opponent set, that's actually really cool for the deck. Then we're playing 2 copies of Light Imprisoning Mirror for sort of like the Light Sworn matchups. 2 copies of Pulling the Rug for our Monarch matchups and stuff like that, like Monarch Frog and all that. Then also for the Frog matchups, we have 2 copies of Deck Devastation Virus. I've seen a few people main deck this, but I didn't want to really be doing that, so I just figured 2 in the side is perfectly good. And then for our last card, we are playing the additional copy of Royal Oppression. For when we're playing up against those decks where this really hurts, we definitely want to be playing 2 copies. But one thing that I didn't really say when I was in the main deck is that it was a very noticeable difference when I went from playing just the draw traps, playing 4 of the draw traps, and then I swapped to playing the Dark Grepher and the 1 copy of Royal Oppression in the main. Once I changed that up, it was a very noticeable difference. So I definitely recommend keeping 1 copy of Oppression in the main. But anyways, guys, that is going to do it for today's deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I always love fiddling around with Blackwings. We're going to be doing a deck profile for Vayu Turbo and even like the Norlaris deck at some point. So definitely stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and if you guys are new to Edison format, hopefully now you guys enjoy or understand why Blackwings are such a powerful deck in the format. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.